What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Hope that you guys like the new intro. I'm gearing up for hopefully coming up to 5K subs where we'll be doing something pretty special, but I just want to give a quick thanks to all of you who have been with me up to the journey this far, and I couldn't do it without you guys. With that being said, we're going to figure out how to take a basic respace that sounds like this and turn it into something that sounds like this. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that sounded pretty cool to me, and you guys have seen me do a lot of this kind of stuff in Faceplant, but I definitely wanted to make a point that you can pretty much make a generator with anything that has some kind of modulator in it. Even if it's just an LFO, you can combine a bunch of different LFOs to kind of have really slow turning to where there's a constant change over time that might create something unpredictable. For the most part, everything within this are first-party plugins except for ROM, FabFilter Pro 2. That's just because Bitwig's limiter isn't that great, and ROM was free if you caught it. If not, you can just use a regular reverb. It doesn't really matter. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about how to make this patch work. The first thing that you're going to want to do is grab yourself a Polysense, and the main thing that I did was I made a respace just by having the pitch to the 32nd octave, whatever that is. That setting is kind of strange. Turning up the sub a little bit, turning up the unison to 2 voices, and then making sure that there's no stereo. And then as you can see, I only have one oscillator that's playing through. From this point on, the biggest thing is that I'm starting to add these modulators, these randomizers rather. One of them is controlling the filter type, one of them is controlling the frequency of this that's kind of just moving around on its own, and there's a bit of key tracking, though I don't know why that's and the other thing that I'm doing is changing the different type of blend mode. So as I'm here, everything is pushed up, so it's going to constantly kind of change between the way that it reacts within all that. From that point, you just have some basic movement. And something that I do a lot in Faceplant is I have a randomizer on a pitch, but I find that if you use a note effect and use the note pitch shifter and instead change the fine tuning and the semitones, then you're going to get a lot of different variation between the types of sounds that you get. So immediately you start to get randomized pitches and stuff, and that's really important when you start doing things with delays and all that. So that's kind of the premise between this, for the most part, is really just like, as you can tell, there's a lot of different delays, some ring mods and stuff that are going to make this work. But one thing that I haven't talked about a whole lot is the delay 4, and really, like, this was kind of just one of those experimentation things where the only thing that I did was start to set these feedbacks into each other and randomize them to kind of create these different values. And you can see that it's kind of oscillating on its own. Let me turn that off for a bit. But you can see that it's kind of oscillating on its own to kind of set up these different feedback loops in order to create that. And as a general sense, everything over here on the time on the right is slightly different times. And then these feedback values kind of all line up towards, as you can see, this one lines up to, let me turn the gain down on this. That one lines up to feedback 3. That one lines up to feedback 2. This one lines up to, oh sorry, that one's feedback 2, this one's feedback 1, feedback 4. This one is variable time from the first one, and then I believe that this one, or one of these on here, is just the mix. Yeah, so this one is the mix. But basically, like, don't worry about trying to set this up yourself and make it exact, because it's not difficult to get that buzzing sound out of this. The big thing is just like, take a couple of randomizers and just start to automate all of these and then mess with the mix, because we're really just, again, trying to create some randomized things that are going to sound decent whenever we start plugging these all in. So the next thing that we're going to do is take the Resonator bank, and this thing is pretty cool. There's a lot of different things that you can do because it's several different resonators at once. And so basically what you do with these randomizers is just change the frequency of each of these. Then you want to change the resonance, but as you can see, it's not going past halfway, so we don't get any crazy peaks or anything. And then finally just automating the mix. So whenever you play something now, we should get something that sounds like this. That got really loud for a second. I'm sorry. So after that, basically what we want to try now is to start to change it a little bit more. And while you're designing this, it's very smart to put a limiter at the end, which I'm going to go ahead and turn that on now, so that way we don't have another mistake like that. But basically, as this is kind of coming on within the whole shebang, we want to introduce some more movement, which to here, I took 3 different ring mods and probably gave them the same automation. The only difference is that the amounts are set at different rates. And so now we're going to start to get a little bit of variation between that. Which is pretty cool because it sounds pretty digital. From this point, that's when we're going to go ahead and introduce ROM, which is an awesome reverb that was free for the holidays from Native Instruments. I think that it's on sale now if for whatever reason you missed it, but honestly, like, you can just use a stock reverb. It's not that big of a deal. But basically what I'm doing is I've got a large decay of 2.6 seconds with some big diffusion, and then I'm only automating the mix. That's all. Yeah. Some nice, awesome, kind of like texture cave sounding things in there. So from this point, I have one of these activated because they have different kind of settings on them, but really the only thing that you really want to think about is just automating the time on this one and this one. Sorry, it's kind of hard for me to bounce back and forth because this is constantly making noise. But basically you set up the delay to kind of mess with the feedback, and then you also can change the time and the detuning on this, or you can set up this other one, which I believe is pretty much the same thing, just this one is modulating the time. And whenever you send something into that, now you're getting all different kinds of motion and stuff. So it doesn't really matter how you want to do it. There's a lot of different options that you can do. I think I was using this one from beforehand, but after that you set up a vocoder, and I believe that this one is just stagnant. So yay for no modulation on this one. Then we're going to go into the pitch shifter, which is really awesome. This one is automating the grain and the mix, modulating, and we end up getting some really awesome texture out of this. I've been really into pitch shifters lately, just because of the kind of like transformer sound quality that you can get from it. It doesn't always work, but it's a great place to try to reach for if you automatically want to make something sound, I don't even want to say metallic, I would say more so of like robotic or cybernetic. So after that, we've got a chorus, which we're just automating the mix on. And then we've got a filter, which is just doing some notching at random. And then the next thing I have is something that I've featured in all of my videos. This is my basic preset for Multiband Effect 3. If you have multipass, then you can go ahead and use that. And if not, if you're in Bitwig, then you have a high pass on the low, a band pass on the mid, and a low pass on the high. And they all kind of just move at random. And then to make sure that it doesn't cut too much of the sound out, you have the mix that's being automated as well. So you can pause the video in case if you need to, but what I would recommend is like spend 30 minutes making this device and then save it as a default preset or save it as a preset in general, and then as opposed to having to go back and redo it every time, you can just load that right up. The next thing is just a corrective means, so we're making sure that everything below 150 Hertz is in mono. That's pretty much the only thing on that. And then finally we have an OTT, and that's pretty much it. I know that it seems like a lot because I've set up a lot of modulators and randomizers and stuff, but it's really no different than anything that I've done in Phaseplan. And so like once you get an idea about putting these generators and stuff together, it becomes a lot easier for you to see how this stuff translates in between. And once you kind of find something that you like, then you just record it and bounce it out. And this one I was particularly happy with. And the cool thing is that once this is done and you kind of have everything set up, you can change the source sound, you can replace with different filters, you can try other spatial effects like phasers and flangers and all that. And really it's kind of up to you. But man, I can't stress enough how much I want to encourage people to use these modulators. It's one of the coolest things, and like it's different than something like the grid or something like VCV rack or something of the sort that's an actual modular environment, because you have a lot more parameters that you can directly control. So it's almost like it is a hybrid, but it just the workflow behind it is so much easier to manage. And I would firmly or strongly agree that there are strengths and weaknesses to each one, but that's part of the reason why I like doing things within this particular environment and also Faceplant, is because it is modular, but it's not so modular that you can't figure out where to direct things. It's really just taking a device that's going to affect another and then having it change parameters on its own, which is the whole idea of modular in the first place. With that being said, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun to make, and I've got some cool sound design things coming up. If you guys are interested in this kind of sound and all that, then be sure to check out my website at alckemy.com, and, you know, obviously like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Much love to you all. Come find me in the Discord if you have questions, and I will see you in the next video.